Hello, welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on what was a beautiful sunny Sunday after Thanksgiving. I hope you had an enjoyable holiday. I did. It's been quiet here for, 9 days so far, to be 10 tomorrow. My wife and son went to Tokyo, and I decided while they were gone to finally work on, with the goal of getting this 41 Willys gasser project together and out of my shop this week. It's been here a long time, over a year. Most of that, my fault. In that amount of time, the project has changed a little bit. The original frame was pretty much junk. This one is much better. Again, it's a 41. The steel welds kind of funny in places. Other places it welds normal. I have no idea what they were making steel out of in 1941 for the Willys or in the Willys factory. But as they say, it is what it is. So you have to adjust your welding style accordingly. So the rear end is a late 50s Olds Pontiac style, which used to be the go-to upgrade, for instance, on a Tri-5 Chevy, because the dimensions were similar, and it is much stronger than a factory Tri-5 rear end. My buddy picked it up, and a long time ago, long before this project existed, he picked up the center section, I put it in and put the disc brakes and all that stuff on the rear end, and it's just been sitting there waiting for a project. Well, he decided to put it in this one. Seems like a simple decision. However, this style rear end has tapered axle tubes. So you can imagine putting these crazy Speedway ladder bar brackets on the rear end. Not only is the axle tube oval instead of round, it's also tapered out toward the end. It straightens out where the leaf spring would be, the way it was originally mounted, but in this case, the ladder bars are 30 inches apart, so I'm on the tapered section. And it definitely added more of a challenge, but with my new schedule, typically here at home, I do all the cooking and that kind of stuff, so I schedule my life around my wife and my son. However, with them gone, my schedule is wide open. So I've made a few interesting discoveries. I spent a long time living single, but it's been a while. For instance, yesterday I woke up, ended up messing around on the internet half the morning, still managed to work 8 hours yesterday because I don't have a start or stop time. So hey, I just work when I feel like it until I'm tired. Tonight I'm so close. I really want to get this thing out of here this week, but I'm trying to fix a lot of the sins, and I'm going to highlight those as in all projects that have been handed off, I don't know how many times. There's some questionable choices made, most of it just in the mock-up stage. I'm sure they meant to come back and fix some of the sins later on, but you know how that goes. So let me grab the camera and I'll show you a few highlights. Now, bear with me. The other day we had a couple inches of snow, and then it started raining really hard, and for the first time ever, there's a window on the end of the garage. It leaked water and was dripping down where my normal clicker is, so I moved the clicker I usually use that I trust, and I put it in a safe spot, and it still eludes me. So this one came with the new tripod I've been using for the last year, but I don't like this clicker, but I'm using it anyway, so that's why I'm wearing it around my hand, and let's hope it works. Otherwise, I'm talking to nothing for a while, and I have to do it all over again. See what I mean? I know I said it was a 41 Willys. I'm not sure I said pickup. That's what it is. The cab's outside, the bed's somewhere else. When I first looked at these ladder bars,
that I believe are from Speedway. I know they are. I said, they're so long, it's going to end up being the transmission cross member. And I was right. It actually worked out pretty well. When this frame showed up, I looked at the mount on the front. I said, somebody's put a Chevy V8 in this before. Today I said, that's a big block, and it literally bolted in. I thought I was going to have to fabricate everything, and that was the best surprise yet. All I had to do was mount the rear of the transmission, and we're good. Now, the original plan was a 4-speed. This is my dummy setup. And then he decided he really I had built him a Turbo 400. He wanted to put that in there. And today I tried a Power Glide case. And as I've schooled before, the 6-inch TH350, which that is over there, the 4-speed, all the manual 3 and 4 speeds, and the Power Glide all mount in the same position, and they're all the same length. And with the exception of the Super T10 Borg Warner, they all take the same small 27 spline Power Glide TH350 yoke on the transmission. So I love the Chevrolet interchangeability. That's just General Motors. The wonderful interchangeability. The only oddball back in this vintage was the Turbo 400. That's the only one that has a strange mounting. Everything else is pretty much the same. So it's going to have, and I think they're going to work, these fender well headers. They seem to clear everything. We'll move to the front in a minute, but wow, from this perspective, the Olds rear, I ended up mounting the coilovers forward because this frame is extremely weak. There's much more support up here, so that's what we did. Panade bar, I just had a bunch of junk laying around because he did not have any. He had the ladder bars in the rear end, so. The chassis features some wonderful holes that are absolutely dead center, so I was able to tie my string, and there's holes to reference in all the cross members. Makes it real easy to establish a center line. The square tubing is the cross member that came with the Speedway ladder bar kit. I just added the bracket because when I set the big block in here and bolted the mounts up, all I had to do is make a tab to weld to the front side of that. The Power Glide fits even better than the 4-speed. I believe that's the direction he's going to go. Now the sins, everywhere that they tried to adapt parts onto this Willys chassis, it had a different style front end originally. He came up with this one somewhere. I put the brakes and stuff on it, but the spring pads are wrong, so I need to make new pads. The U-bolts are pointing in this bolt pattern, doesn't match this one, so something else I'll fix while it's here. But if you look at like the shackles, the springs take a 7/16 bolt. There was no bushing in the frame, so I made an aluminum bushing here, but all these shackles just have a tacked on washer instead of making a new shackle. So I need to make 4 shackles. The frame, they did the same thing on the old frame. They just tacked a washer on there. I made a bushing that goes in, spaces the spring, fills up this 1-inch hole. This spring hanger is 7/16 on the other side to match the bolt, but this side is inch. I'm sure Willys had something probably similar, but I don't understand why they would weld washers on there. That's not structural, so that is not safe. The X in the chassis makes an excellent drive shaft loop. And this is prime for cutting, putting flanges on and have it removable. But I don't think, if you had to service the transmission a lot, but I don't believe it'll get modified. I'm not going to modify it. And structurally, it's better off this way because of the way all the stress, I was able to incorporate welding on the frame and the X for that cross member, but in the end, I probably would leave it the way it is and just pull the whole engine and transmission together. But if you wanted to, you could put flanges on there and make a removable center section. You see this a lot in OEM welding. Typically, name the brand, they're all the same. I don't know what process they use, but it's not exactly pretty, but it's lasted a long time. So the most exciting part for me, one, getting my lift back. I have some service work to do on my personal vehicles, and then the Model A is, you can't even see there's a Model A there anymore. So that is coming out of its spot, going on the lift so I can actually work on it. And this area I'm going to reclaim, and I recently bought a bunch of steel benches, and I think it would make a nice, transmission area maybe. Doing all the transmission work on my fab bench isn't the greatest, nor is having my fab area right next to transmission stuff, but I try not to do both at the same time. Shop's never big enough. I dream of a bigger shop someday, but right now I gotta make good use of what I have. So I'm looking forward. I do this about once a year. I end up rejuvenating a certain area of the shop, and it makes me happy every time I reap the benefits of that. So it's definitely worthwhile. This whole mess, it's the first thing you see when you walk in the door. It just looks awful. So looking forward to that. And with the Model A now in the way, I'll be forced to work on it and maybe get to enjoy it someday. So that's the tentative plan, at least today. So I hope you had a great holiday like I mentioned before, and a wonderful weekend. And I'll catch you in a couple days. Take care.